The massive alien warship floated above Earth like a dark mountain in space. Admiral Kethfer stood on his command bridge and watched the blue planet below him. Smoke rose from every major city. Human ships burned in orbit around the moon. The Battle of Luna was over and the Zephyrian Collective had won. Kethfer activated his communication system. His voice would reach every corner of the galaxy in minutes. The other alien races needed to know that humanity was finished. The humans had been too dangerous, too unpredictable. Now they were defeated. Citizens of the galaxy, Kethfer began. Today marks the end of the human threat. Their fleets are destroyed. Their worlds are ours. The species that dared to challenge the natural order has been crushed. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Grant crouched in the ruins of what used to be New York. She held her breath as alien soldiers marched past her hiding spot. Their purple armor gleamed in the afternoon sun. They carried weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Behind them, massive transport ships landed in Central Park. Lisa had worked at the city hospital before the war started. She had saved lives every day. Now she watched helplessly as the aliens set up processing centers for human prisoners. Thousands of people lined up with their hands raised. The lucky ones would become slaves. The rest would simply disappear. Far above Earth, Captain Jake Morrison drifted in his broken ship. The frigate Phoenix had taken direct hits during the battle. Most of his crew was dead. Life support would fail in 6 hours. The ship's radio was smashed. Even if it worked, who would he call? Every human military base had gone silent. Jake floated to the window and looked out at the wreckage. Hundreds of human ships drifted like broken toys. The aliens had been too strong, too many. Their shields had stopped every weapon humanity could throw at them. Their computers had predicted every human tactic before it happened. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. She was bleeding from a head wound but still worked at her broken console. "I'm picking up something on the emergency channel." Jake pushed himself over to her. In zero gravity, every movement sent him spinning. The emergency channel was supposed to be impossible to detect. Only the highest-ranking military officers knew it existed. If someone was broadcasting on it, they had clearance from the very top. The message was simple. 3 words repeated over and over: "Lazarus is awake. Lazarus is awake." Jake felt his heart skip. Lazarus was a code name from his military academy days. A theoretical project that most people thought was just a legend. If Lazarus was real, then maybe humanity had one last card to play. Down on Earth, Lisa heard the same message through a tiny radio hidden in her medical kit. She had almost thrown the radio away when the aliens landed. Emergency broadcasts were usually just desperate people calling for help that would never come. But this was different. This was from General Frank Hayes himself. Lisa knew Frank from her time as a military doctor. He was the kind of man who planned for everything. If Frank was broadcasting, he had a reason. The message told her to go to Checkpoint 7. She had no idea what Checkpoint 7 was, but she would find out. Aliens continued their victory celebration. Transport ships brought in millions of Zephyrian colonists. They would live in human cities now. Humans would work in the mines and factories that the aliens built. Earth would become just another conquered world in the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kethfer watched the colonization begin and felt satisfied. Humans had been the most dangerous species the Collective had ever fought. They used tactics that made no sense. They fought even when they could not win. They never surrendered when any sensible species would have given up. But now they were finished. The Admiral did not know about the hidden bases carved deep inside. Asteroids. He did not know about the supply depots hidden on empty moons. He did not know about the secret shipyards that had been building in the darkness for 50 years. Most importantly, He did not know about Project Lazarus. Captain Jake Morrison used the last of his ship's power to change course. The Phoenix was dying, but it could still reach the asteroid belt. If Lazarus was real, someone would be waiting. There, his crew looked at him with hope in their eyes. They had been ready to die. Now they had a reason to live. Lisa Grant gathered her medical supplies and started moving through the ruins. She had to reach Checkpoint 7 before the aliens found her. Other survivors were getting the same message. Across Earth, people who had given up hope suddenly had something to fight for. The Zephyrians thought they had won. They counted human bodies and destroyed human ships. They planted their flags and made their speeches, but they had only defeated the part of humanity that they could see. The part they could not see was just beginning to wake up. General Frank Hayes sat in a room buried 2 miles under the Rocky Mountains. Banks of computers surrounded him. Each screen showed a different part of human space. Green lights were coming. On across the galaxy, Lazarus was more than awake. Lazarus was ready to show the aliens what humanity really looked like when it was angry. 3 months had passed since the aliens planted their victory flags on Earth. Commander Vextar checked his daily reports with growing annoyance. Another supply convoy had vanished between Mars and Jupiter. The transport ship had simply stopped responding to radio calls. When the search team found it, the crew was gone and the cargo holds were empty. Technical failure, his aide suggested. The human ships were poorly built. Perhaps their salvaged vessels are breaking down. The Vextar wanted to believe this explanation. It was easier than admitting that something was hunting his ships. In the past month, 7 convoys had disappeared. 3 communication stations had gone offline. 2 mining operations had simply stopped working overnight with no explanation. Deep under the streets of New York, Dr. Lisa Grant crawled through a maintenance tunnel. The city's underground was larger than most people knew. Subway tunnels connected to steam pipes. Steam pipes led to electrical conduits. Electrical conduits opened into forgotten storage rooms. Lisa and her team had been mapping these passages for weeks. "The next relay station is 200 meters ahead," whispered Jake Morrison. The former Starship captain had found his way to Earth after following the Lazarus signals. His ship was hidden in an underwater cave off the coast. His crew worked with Lisa's medical team to plan their next strike. They reached the alien communication relay without being detected. The purple armored guards stood at attention but saw nothing in the shadows. Lisa's team had learned to move like ghosts. They wore stolen alien equipment that fooled the enemy sensors. They knew the guard schedules because they had been watching. For weeks, the attack lasted exactly 30 seconds. Silent weapons dropped the guards before they could raise an alarm. Lisa's people took everything useful and destroyed the rest. By the time more guards arrived, the tunnels were empty again. The only sign of human presence was a small symbol carved into the wall. A phoenix rising from ashes. Captain Morrison's crew had grown since the battle at Luna. Other survivors found their way to his hidden base. Engineers, soldiers, doctors, even children who had lost their families. They called themselves Morrison's Ghosts because the aliens thought they were all dead. The Ghost Fleet now had 12 ships. Most were cobbled together from salvaged parts. They looked like junk, but they worked. Morrison's people had learned to fight the way their ancestors did. They used the terrain. They struck fast and disappeared faster. They never fought fair. Lieutenant Amy Chun stood at her new command station aboard the rebuilt Phoenix. Her head wound had healed but left a scar that made her look fiercer. She studied the alien patrol routes on her screen. The enemy was getting predictable. They followed the same paths, used the same formations, made the same mistakes. "Target acquired," Chen reported. 1 heavy cruiser, minimal escort. "They're carrying quantum processors to the Mars colony." Morrison nodded. Quantum processors were valuable. The aliens used them to run their advanced computers. Without them, the technology advantage would shrink. More importantly, stealing them would force the enemy to send bigger escorts. Bigger. Escorts meant fewer ships available for other duties. The Phoenix and 3 smaller ships dropped out of hyperspace behind an asteroid. The alien cruiser passed by exactly on schedule. Its sensors never detected the human ships hiding in the asteroid's shadow. Morrison's people had learned to mask their energy signatures using techniques copied from alien stealth technology. Attack was perfect. Boarding teams cut through the cruiser's hull in 6 places at once. The aliens never had time to send a distress signal. Their crew fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and surprised. Within an hour, the cruiser belonged to Morrison's ghosts. Amy Chun led the team that captured the ship's computer core. The quantum processors were valuable, but the information was priceless. Patrol schedules, supply routes, communication codes, personnel files. Everything the growing resistance needed to plan bigger operations. Back on Earth, General Frank Hayes watched the reports flow in from around the galaxy. His network was working better than he had hoped. Resistance cells operated on 50 different worlds. They shared information, coordinated attacks, and supported each other across impossible distances. The general's favorite reports came from Dr. Rick Barnes. The xenobiologist had spent years studying alien physiology in secret. His research stations were hidden inside defunct mining operations that the aliens ignored. Barnes had developed weapons that could target alien biology without harming humans. The new strain is ready for field testing, Barnes reported through encrypted channels. It targets their respiratory system. Symptoms appear to be a natural illness. No way to trace it back to human action. Hayes smiled grimly. The aliens thought they understood human biology. They had studied human prisoners and felt confident in their medical knowledge. They did not realize that humans had been studying them just as carefully. Every alien body recovered from early battles had taught Barnes something new. Lisa Grant's team tested the new biological weapon on a small alien outpost. They introduced it through the water supply. Within hours, the alien guards were too sick to stand. Lisa's people walked in and took everything they wanted. The aliens never suspected human involvement. They thought their people had caught some local disease. Word of the successful test spread through the resistance network. Other cells began requesting biological weapons for their own operations. The aliens had superior technology, but they were vulnerable in ways they had never imagined. Admiral Kethfer reviewed the incident reports with growing concern. Equipment failures were one thing. Random illnesses among his troops were more troubling. The medical team insisted the symptoms matched a natural virus found on several human worlds. But the timing seemed suspicious. Perhaps we should increase medical screening, suggested his chief medical officer. If local diseases are affecting our people, we need better protection. Kethfer agreed, but he suspected something else was happening. The humans were supposed to be beaten. Their leadership was dead. Their technology was inferior. Their resistance should have collapsed by now. Instead, his forces faced constant small attacks that accomplished nothing but created fear and uncertainty. Morrison's ghost struck again 2 days later. This time they hit a research station orbiting Saturn. The aliens were studying human technology, trying to understand how inferior equipment had performed so well in battle. They never got to complete their research. Morrison's people took everything and left the station a drifting wreck. The attack pattern was always the same: fast approach, overwhelming force, quick withdrawal. The aliens never saw the human ships coming. Their sensors detected nothing until the attack was already over. It was as if the humans had learned to become invisible. The truth was simpler. Morrison's people had learned from every encounter. They studied alien tactics, copied alien technology, and improved on both. They fought like humans had always fought. They adapted, improvised, and overcame. The aliens had won the first battle. But the war was far from over. General Frank Hayes walked through the command center buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. The room was larger than a football stadium and filled with the most advanced technology humanity had ever built. Holographic displays showed star maps, covering half the galaxy. Status lights blinked green as hidden bases reported their readiness across dozens of star systems. Hayes had spent 50 years preparing for this day. While other generals planned for conventional wars, he had planned for survival. He knew that humanity would eventually face an enemy too powerful to defeat in open battle. When that day came, the visible military would fall. The invisible military would rise. "Show me the Titan base status," Hayes ordered. Lieutenant Amy Chen, now serving as his communications officer, activated the display. Deep inside Saturn's Moon Titan, 3,000 humans lived and worked in a facility carved from solid ice. The base had been under construction for 30 years. The aliens flying past Titan every day had no idea it existed. "All systems green, sir," Chun reported. "Captain Martinez confirms they have 47 modified destroyers ready for deployment. Each ship carries the new hybrid drive systems." Hayes nodded with satisfaction. The hybrid drives combined human engineering with captured alien technology. They were faster than anything in the human fleet and harder to detect than alien stealth systems. More importantly, they could be manufactured in hidden shipyards scattered across the outer planets. Dr. Rick Barnes appeared on another communication screen. He was calling from a research station hidden inside the asteroid belt. To alien sensors, it looked like a dead rock floating in space. In reality, it housed the most sophisticated biological weapons laboratory in human history. "The new pathogen is ready for mass production," Barnes reported. "We can manufacture enough to affect entire alien fleets. Delivery systems are also complete. The enemy will never know what hit them." Barnes had been working around the clock. Since the invasion began, his team had dissected every alien body they could find. They had studied alien food supplies, water systems, and atmospheric processors. The results were weapons perfectly designed to target alien biology while leaving humans completely unharmed. Hayes switched to another communication channel. This one reached a woman named Kate Brooks, who was floating in a command ship somewhere. In the Orc cloud, Admiral Brooks commanded the real human fleet. Not the ships that had died at Luna, but the ones that had been hidden for decades in the dark space beyond Pluto. "Status report, Admiral," Hayes requested. "All ships accounted for, General," Brooks replied. "We have 600 vessels ready for action. Crews are trained and eager. The new weapon systems have exceeded all performance expectations." The ships of Brooks' fleet were masterpieces of deception. They had been designed to look like cargo haulers and mining vessels. Their hulls were painted to match common asteroid types. Their energy signatures mimicked background radiation. For 20 years, they had practiced maneuvers in the outer system while alien scouts flew past without noticing them. Hayes closed the communication and turned to his main display. Green dots marked active resistance cells across human space. Each dot represented hundreds of people working to undermine alien occupation. They were miners, farmers, teachers, engineers, parents. They looked like defeated civilians, but they were actually soldiers in the most important war humanity had ever fought. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Grant received new orders through her encrypted communicator. The resistance was ready to move to the next phase. Instead of small raids, they would begin coordinating major operations. The aliens had grown comfortable with their occupation. It was time to make them uncomfortable again. Grant's cell had grown to over 200 people. They controlled the underground tunnels beneath 3 major cities. They had weapons, supplies, and detailed intelligence on alien positions. Most importantly, they had hope. The Lazarus Network had shown them that humanity was far from defeated. "We hit 12 targets simultaneously," Grant explained to her team leaders. "Communication centers, supply depots, and command posts. The timing has to be perfect. If we succeed, the aliens will lose control of the entire eastern seaboard." Jake Morrison's Ghost Fleet had also received new orders. They would coordinate their attacks with resistance cells on 40 different worlds. Supply convoys would disappear. Communication networks would fail. Alien commanders would find themselves cut off from their superiors and unable to call for help. Morrison studied the mission, briefing from his command ship. The Phoenix had been completely rebuilt using alien technology. It was faster, stronger, and more heavily armed than before. His fleet now included captured alien vessels operated by human crews. The hunters had become the hunted. "Amy, signal the other ships," Morrison ordered. Operation Phoenix Rising begins in 6 hours. The operation was massive in scope. Resistance. Cells across 23 star systems would strike at the same moment. The aliens would face coordinated attacks from enemies they thought were scattered and broken. The psychological impact would be as important as the military damage. Dr. Barnes prepared his biological weapons for deployment. Specially modified. Atmospheric processors would introduce the pathogen into alien facilities. The aliens would believe their own equipment was malfunctioning. By the time they realized they were under attack, it would be too late. Admiral Brooks moved her fleet into position at the edge of the solar system. Her ships would provide support for the operations closer to Earth. If any alien reinforcements tried to respond, they would find the human fleet waiting for them. Hayes watched the countdown timer on his main display. Everything humanity had worked toward for 50 years would be decided in the next few hours. The aliens thought they had crushed human civilization. They were about to learn the difference between defeating an army and defeating a species. "All units report ready," Chun announced. "Begin Operation Phoenix Rising," Hayes ordered. Across the galaxy, the invisible war became visible. Hidden bases opened their doors. Secret shipyards launched their fleets. Resistance cells emerged from the shadows. The aliens had won the first battle by being stronger. They were about to lose the war by being unprepared. On 17 different worlds, communication networks went dark simultaneously. Alien commanders found themselves unable to contact their fleets or their homeworlds. They had relied on technology to coordinate their empire. Without communications, they were isolated and vulnerable. Supply convoys began disappearing faster than they could be replaced. The aliens had assumed human raids were random and uncoordinated. Now they realized every attack had been planned and timed for maximum effect. Their logistics network collapsed as human forces struck at every weak point. Most devastating of all was the biological attack. Alien personnel began falling ill in facilities across human space. Their medical teams could not identify the pathogen or develop treatments. Entire bases became inoperable as their crews were evacuated for medical treatment. Admiral Kethvar stood on his command bridge and watched his carefully planned occupation fall apart. Reports flooded in from across the collective's territory. Human forces were attacking everywhere at once. The defeated enemy had somehow returned stronger than before. "How is this possible?" Kethvar demanded. "We destroyed their fleets. We occupied their worlds. Where are these ships coming from?" His intelligence officer had no answers. The humans had been hiding assets that nobody had detected. Their true military strength had been concealed until the moment they chose to reveal it. The collective had won a battle against Earth's public military while the real military remained hidden and intact. Hayes smiled as the reports came in. Phase 1 was complete. The aliens were confused, isolated, and under attack from multiple directions. Now it was time for Phase 2. Admiral Brooks would bring her fleet home. Captain Morrison would lead his ghosts into enemy territory. Dr. Grant would turn Earth into a fortress that no alien army could hold. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity stopped playing defense and started playing offense. Admiral Kate Brooks stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched 600 human warships emerge from the darkness beyond. Pluto. The UHS Defiance was twice the size of any ship that had fought at Luna. Its hull gleamed with alien technology integrated into human engineering. Weapons that had never been seen in battle powered up for the first time. All ships report ready for jump, her tactical officer announced. Course laid in for Earth. Brooks had waited 20 years for this moment. While the visible fleet fought and died defending humanity's colonies, her invisible fleet had grown stronger in the cold darkness of space. They had practiced maneuvers around distant asteroids. They had tested weapons on abandoned space stations. They had learned to fight in ways the aliens had never imagined. Begin the jump, Brooks ordered. Time to go home. The fleet vanished in flashes of twisted light. Hyperspace drives based on captured alien technology carried them toward Earth, faster than any human ship had ever traveled. The aliens monitoring the outer system saw nothing. Their sensors detected only empty space where humanity's greatest military force had just been hiding, on Earth. Dr. Lisa Grant led her resistance fighters through the streets of New York in broad daylight. 3 months ago, they had hidden in tunnels and sewers. Now they wore captured alien armor and carried alien weapons. The occupying forces had learned to fear the phoenix symbol that appeared wherever humans struck back. Alpha Team, take the communication center, Grant ordered into her radio. Beta Team, secure the landing pads. Gamma Team, capture the command post. Remember, we want prisoners this time. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had assumed that defeating Earth's military meant conquering Earth's people. They had never studied human history. If they had, they would have known that humans fought differently when defending their homes. Every street became a battlefield. Every building became a fortress. Every civilian became a soldier. Grant's teams moved with precision through the PIA. Alien-controlled city. They knew every building, every alley, every hiding place. The aliens knew only the routes between their major facilities. When the shooting started, humans vanished into the urban landscape while aliens found themselves trapped in unfamiliar territory. The communication center fell first. Alien technicians surrendered when human soldiers appeared behind them. The humans had used maintenance tunnels to bypass every security checkpoint. Within minutes, Grant's people controlled the equipment that coordinated alien operations across the entire continent. Captain Jake Morrison's Ghost fleet materialized near Jupiter with weapons already firing. His ships had been hiding in the asteroid belt for weeks, watching alien patrol patterns and supply routes. They had learned that the enemy relied on predictable schedules and superior technology. Today they would learn that humans could be unpredictable. Phoenix Squadron, attack formation Delta, Morrison commanded. Remember, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to win. Morrison's ships looked like a collection of salvaged junk held together with spare parts and determination. The alien squadron protecting Jupiter's moons had sleek hulls and advanced weaponry. The battle should have been hopeless for the humans. Instead, it was a massacre in their favor. The aliens expected human ships to attack from the front using conventional tactics. Morrison's people attacked from 6 directions at once using weapons that behaved in impossible ways. Quantum torpedoes phased through alien shields. Gravitic mines appeared inside alien hulls. Energy beams curved around obstacles to strike from. Unexpected angles. Lieutenant Amy Chun coordinated the fleet from her position aboard the Phoenix. Her displays showed alien ships dying faster than their commanders could respond. The enemy had prepared to fight the human military they remembered from Luna. They were not prepared to fight the human military that had learned from defeat. Enemy flagship is requesting permission to surrender, Chun reported. Denied, Morrison replied. Take prisoners from the escort vessels. The flagship dies. I want the aliens to know that some defeats cannot be forgiven. The alien flagship exploded in a ball of plasma that lit up the Jovian system. Its death marked the end of alien naval superiority in the outer planets. Morrison's people would hunt down every enemy ship until human space belonged to humans again. Dr. Rick Barnes watched his biological weapons work with scientific satisfaction. Alien facilities across 12 star systems reported equipment failures and personnel illness. The aliens suspected sabotage, but their investigations found nothing. The pathogens Barnes had developed were invisible to alien medical scanners. Phase 3 deployment is complete, Barnes reported to General Hayes. Enemy combat effectiveness has dropped by 40% in the affected areas. They still don't know they're under biological attack. Barnes had designed his weapons to mimic natural diseases that existed on human worlds. The aliens assumed their people were catching local infections. They never suspected that humans had spent decades developing pathogens specifically to target. Alien physiology. The biological attack was more than just a weapon. It was psychological warfare. Alien commanders began to fear that human worlds were naturally hostile to their species. Morale dropped as soldiers worried about invisible threats that their technology could not detect or defend against. Admiral Brooks brought her fleet into Earth orbit just as the sun rose over the Pacific Ocean. The aliens had a dozen warships patrolling the planet. They outnumbered the human fleet that had defended Earth during the invasion. They did not outnumber the human fleet that had been hiding for 20 years. All ships, engage at will, Brooks commanded. Show them what we've learned. The battle for Earth lasted exactly 47 minutes. The aliens fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed by human ships that moved faster, hit harder, and used tactics that defied military logic. Captured alien technology had been improved by human engineers who understood both systems. The result was weapons that exceeded anything either species had built alone. Admiral Kethfer watched his forces crumble from his command ship in orbit. His tactical computers could not predict human movements. His weapons could not lock onto human ships that seemed to flicker in and out of reality. His commanders reported impossible things happening everywhere at once. Sir, the human fleet is using some kind of phase technology, his tactical officer reported. Their ships are partially existing in hyperspace during normal flight. Our sensors can't track them consistently. Kethver had spent his career studying human military doctrine. He thought he understood how they fought. The species that had nearly been destroyed at Luna was somehow fighting better than it ever had before. Every defeat had made them stronger. Every loss had taught them something new. All ships, retreat to the outer system, Kethver ordered. We need to regroup and request reinforcements. But retreat was no longer possible. Morrison's Ghost Fleet blocked the jump points leading away from Earth. Brooks' main fleet controlled the space around the planet. Grant's resistance forces had captured the communication systems that would have called for help. The aliens were trapped. General Hayes watched the battle reports flow in from across human space. Every major alien facility was under attack. Every alien fleet was engaged with human forces. The invasion that had seemed unstoppable 6 months ago was collapsing faster than it had begun. Communications from Admiral Kethfer, Amy Chun reported. He's requesting terms for surrender, Hayes smiled grimly. The aliens wanted to negotiate. They thought this was still a conventional war between civilized species. They did not understand that humanity was fighting for survival. There would be no terms, there would be no mercy. There would be only victory or death. Tell the Admiral that humans don't negotiate with invaders, Hayes replied. He can surrender unconditionally or he can die fighting. Those are his only choices. The message was delivered across all frequencies so every alien in the system could hear it. The species that had thought itself superior was learning that humans could be more ruthless than any alien race. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The phoenix had risen from the ashes, and its wings cast shadows across the stars. Admiral Kate Brooks studied the tactical display showing 23 star systems, where human forces would strike simultaneously. Operation Phoenix Rising had succeeded beyond all expectations. Earth was free, the aliens were retreating, and humanity was ready to take the war to enemy territory. The time for defense had ended. The time for revenge had begun. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Brooks, she announced across the secure communication network. Operation Retribution begins in 60 minutes. Remember, we're not just liberating human worlds. We're making sure this never happens again. Captain Jake Morrison received the transmission aboard his flagship deep in alien space. His ghost fleet had grown to over 300 vessels, each one a hybrid of human engineering and captured alien technology. They had spent weeks infiltrating enemy territory, mapping defenses, and identifying critical targets. Amy, signal the other squadrons, Morrison ordered. Time to show the aliens what happens when they threaten human children. Lieutenant Amy Chun activated the communication system that linked Morrison's forces with resistance cells throughout alien space. The network Dr. Rick Barnes had developed used quantum encryption that appeared as cosmic background radiation. The aliens had been trying to crack it for months without success. The first target was the Zephyrian Supply Depot at Kepler Station. Morrison's ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation around the massive facility. The alien defenders had 30 seconds to realize they were under attack. They had 10 seconds to panic before the human weapons opened fire. Quantum torpedoes materialized inside the station's shield grid. Gravitic mines collapsed sections of the hull into impossibly small spaces. Energy beams that curved through hyperspace struck from angles that should have been impossible. The depot that had supplied alien fleets for 6 months became expanding debris in less than a minute. Target destroyed, Chun reported. No alien survivors, moving to secondary objectives. The secondary objectives were 3 alien patrol fleets, positioned between Kepler Station and the Zephyrian home system. Morrison's people had been tracking these fleets for weeks, learning their patterns and identifying their weaknesses. The aliens thought they were hunters. They were about to become prey. Dr. Lisa Grant led the assault on the alien research facility orbiting Mars. The facility had been built to study human prisoners and develop better methods of controlling the human population. Grant's team had a special interest in shutting it down permanently. Remember, we want the research data intact, Grant told her assault teams. The aliens have been studying us for months. Time we return the favor. Grant's forces used the same infiltration tactics that had worked on Earth. They appeared inside the facility through maintenance shafts, air vents, and cargo bays that the aliens thought were secure. The defenders found themselves fighting enemies who seemed to materialize from nowhere. The battle was brief and decisive. Alien researchers surrendered when human soldiers appeared in their laboratories. Security forces tried to fight, but they were outnumbered and surrounded. Within an hour, Grant's people controlled every section of the facility. The research data they captured was beyond valuable. Complete biological profiles of every alien species in the collective. Detailed analysis of alien technology and tactics. Most importantly, the location and defensive capabilities of every major alien installation within 50 light-years of Earth. Dr. Rick Barnes received the research data through quantum communication links. His biological weapons had been devastatingly effective against the Zephyrian physiology. Now he had information about 12 other alien species that served the collective. Within hours, he would have weapons specifically designed to target each. 1. This is better than I hoped, Barnes announced to his research team. The aliens have done half our work for us. We can have species-specific bioweapons ready for deployment within 72 hours. The weapons Barnes developed were masterpieces of biological engineering. Each one targeted a different aspect of alien physiology: respiratory systems, nervous systems, immune systems, circulatory systems. The aliens would face diseases that attacked every part of their biology while leaving humans completely unharmed. General Frank Hayes coordinated the operation from his command center under the Rocky Mountains. His displays showed human forces advancing across a front that stretched across half the galaxy. Every attack was succeeding. Every objective was being achieved ahead of schedule. Phase 1 complete. Amy Chun reported. All primary targets neutralized. Enemy resistance minimal. Proceeding to Phase 2. Phase 2 was the most ambitious part of the operation. Human forces would strike directly at the Zephyrian home system, not to occupy it, but to deliver a message that would be heard across the galaxy. Humanity was no longer content to defend itself. Any species that threatened human worlds would face total destruction. Admiral Brooks led the main assault fleet toward the heart of alien space. Her ships moved in formations that human tacticians had developed during months of planning. They used hyperspace jumps that brought them into battle from directions the aliens could not predict or defend against. The Zephyrian home fleet was larger than any force humanity had ever assembled. It included warships from 6 different species and defense platforms that had protected the alien capital for 300 years. The aliens were confident that their numerical superiority would ensure victory. They were wrong. The human fleet included weapons that the aliens had never seen before. Gravitic weapons that collapsed enemy ships into singularities. Quantum disruptors that caused alien hulls to phase out of reality. Biological weapons that turned alien crews against each other. Enemy flagship is breaking apart, Chun reported from the tactical station. Their entire command structure is collapsing. The battle for the Zephyrian home system lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the alien fleet was destroyed and their capital world was defenseless. Admiral Brooks could have bombarded the planet from orbit. Instead, she chose to deliver a different message. Attention, Zephyrian Collective, Brooks announced on all frequencies. Your military is defeated. Your fleets are destroyed. Your worlds are at our mercy. But humans are not like you. We don't slaughter helpless civilians. We're giving you one chance to surrender and withdraw from all human territory. The message was broadcast across the galaxy so every alien species could hear it. Humanity had the power to destroy the Zephyrian homeworld, but chose restraint instead. The psychological impact was enormous. Other species began to question their alliance with the collective. Captain Morrison's Ghost Fleet completed their sweep of alien territory by destroying the last enemy stronghold in the outer colonies. His ships had traveled further from Earth than any human vessel in history. They had proven that human forces could operate anywhere in the galaxy. Mission accomplished, Morrison reported. All alien military assets in human space have been neutralized. Enemy survivors are retreating toward the galactic core. The retreating aliens left behind equipment, supplies, and intelligence that would keep human researchers busy for years. More importantly, they left behind a galaxy that knew humanity could not be conquered. The species that had seemed defeated 6 months ago had proven itself stronger than any potential enemy. Dr. Grant returned to Earth with thousands of human prisoners liberated from alien facilities. They brought stories of alien experiments, forced labor, and planned genocide. The galaxy needed to know what the collective had intended for humanity. "We're not the same species that the aliens invaded," Grant announced to the reformed United Nations. "We've learned what we're capable of when we're fighting for our survival. The galaxy is a safer place because we refuse to be victims." General Hayes reviewed the final battle reports with satisfaction. Operation Retribution had exceeded every objective. Human forces controlled key systems throughout former alien territory. Enemy fleets were scattered and demoralized. The collective was requesting peace negotiations. "What are our terms?" Amy Chun asked. Hayes smiled grimly. "Complete withdrawal from all systems within 100 light-years of Earth, reparations for the destruction they caused, and most importantly, recognition that humanity is off-limits permanently." The aliens would accept these terms because they had no choice. They had learned that humans were not just another species to be conquered. They were apex predators who had been disguising themselves as peaceful explorers. The galaxy would remember this lesson for centuries to come. The Great Assembly Hall of the United Nations had been rebuilt stronger than before. Representatives from every human colony sat alongside delegates from 12 alien species who had requested audience with humanity. At the center of the hall, General Frank Hayes stood before a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. 6 months ago, the Zephyrian Collective believed they had conquered humanity, Hayes began. Today their empire is scattered, their fleets are destroyed, and their homeworld exists only because we chose mercy over vengeance. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had come to Earth expecting to negotiate with a desperate species seeking protection. Instead, they found themselves facing the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. The humans were not asking for help. They were offering it. Admiral Kate Brooks sat at the command table wearing the uniform of the newly formed Galactic Defense Fleet. Her forces now patrolled space lanes that had been controlled by alien pirates for centuries. Human ships protected trade routes, responded to distress calls, and maintained peace between species that had been at war for generations. "The collective made one crucial mistake," Brooks explained to the assembly. "They thought defeating our visible military meant defeating our spirit. They destroyed our fleets, but they never touched our determination. They occupied our worlds, but they never conquered our will to be free." Captain Jake Morrison stood near the back of the hall, still wearing the patch of Morrison's ghosts on his uniform. His fleet had become the core of humanity's rapid response force. They specialized in impossible missions and unlikely victories. The aliens had learned to fear the phoenix symbol that marked his ships. "The galaxy is safer now because we refuse to stay defeated," Morrison added. "Every species that threatens innocent people will face the same choice the collective faced: surrender or destruction. We prefer surrender, but we're prepared for either." Dr. Lisa Grant addressed the medical section of the assembly. She now served as Earth's Minister of Defense, responsible for protecting not just human worlds, but any planet that requested assistance. Her experience fighting an occupying force had taught her valuable lessons about insurgency and resistance. We learned that the difference between victory and defeat isn't always about who has better weapons, Grant explained. Sometimes it's about who wants to win more. The aliens wanted to conquer us. We needed to survive. Need always defeats want. The alien delegates listened with growing respect and fear. They had expected to find humans grateful for peace and eager to return to their previous isolation. Instead, they found a species that had been transformed by war into something more dangerous than any race in galactic history. Rick Barnes presented his research to the Scientific Council. His biological weapons had proven so effective that several alien species had requested defensive countermeasures. Barnes was happy to provide them in exchange for detailed biological data that would help him develop even more sophisticated weapons. The collective's greatest error was underestimating human adaptability, Barnes explained. They studied our technology and tactics, but they never understood our psychology. We don't just learn from defeat. We become stronger because of it. The evidence supported Barnes' claim. Human technology had advanced more in 6 months of war than in the previous 50 years of peace. Ships, weapons, medical equipment, communication systems, even basic manufacturing had been revolutionized by the integration of captured alien technology with human innovation. Lieutenant Amy Chun, now promoted to admiral, commanded the intelligence network that monitored threats throughout the galaxy. Her people operated in every major alien civilization, gathering information and preparing for future conflicts. The humans would never again be caught unprepared. We maintain early warning systems in 47 star systems, Chun reported. Any species attempting to build forces capable of threatening Earth will be detected and neutralized before they can act. We learned our lesson about being surprised. The alien delegates understood the implications. Humanity was not just defending itself anymore. It was actively preventing any other species from developing the capability to threaten human worlds. The galaxy's new rulers wore gentle smiles and spoke of peace, but their message was clear. General Hayes activated the holographic display showing the current military situation. Green indicators marked human-controlled systems. Blue showed allied territories. Red showed potential threats. The map revealed that humanity now influenced or controlled nearly a quarter of the explored galaxy. The Zephyrian Collective once controlled twice this territory, Hayes noted. They used their power to suppress other species and extract tribute from weaker civilizations. We intend to use our power differently. The difference was already apparent. Human forces had liberated dozens of worlds from alien occupation. They had stopped 3 different wars between alien species. They had provided disaster relief to planets suffering from natural catastrophes. The galaxy's new protectors seemed genuinely interested in helping rather than exploiting. But the aliens also knew that human kindness came with conditions. Species that threatened others faced swift and overwhelming retaliation. Pirates found their bases destroyed and their fleets scattered. Slavers discovered that humans considered slavery a crime punishable by death. Conquerors learned that humanity would not tolerate conquest. Morrison's Ghost Fleet had become the enforcement arm of human policy. They appeared wherever threats emerged, moving faster than any alien force could respond. Their ships carried weapons that could sterilize entire planets if necessary. The aliens hoped those weapons would never be used, but they knew they would be if required. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy, Hayes continued. We're interested in making sure no one else rules it either. The age of galactic empires is over. The age of independent worlds protected by human guardians has begun. The Assembly voted unanimously to accept the new galactic order. They had little choice. Human fleets controlled the major hyperspace routes. Human technology was decades ahead of anything other species possessed. Human determination had been tested in the crucible of near extinction and emerged stronger than ever. Dr. Grant closed the session with a final warning that was also a promise. We were told that we were defeated. We were informed that our resistance was futile. We were assured that our species would serve alien masters for the rest of our existence. She paused and looked directly at each alien delegate. We weren't defeated. We were just getting started. Anyone who threatens humanity or our allies will learn the same lesson the collective learned. Some species cannot be conquered because they refuse to surrender. The alien delegates left Earth with a clear understanding of the new reality. Humanity was no longer the peaceful, isolated species that had been surprised by the collective's invasion. They were apex predators who had been awakened by threat and transformed by conflict. Admiral Brooks stood on the observation deck of her flagship and watched the alien vessels depart. Earth looked beautiful from orbit, its cities rebuilt and its defenses stronger than ever. But the planet's true strength was not in its weapons or shields. It was in the determination of its people never to be victims again. Captain Morrison joined her at the window. His ships were preparing to depart for the frontier regions where new threats might emerge. The work of protecting the galaxy was never finished, but humans had proven they were equal to the task. Think we'll have peace? For a while? Morrison asked. Brooks smiled. I think we'll have the kind of peace that comes from being so strong that no one wants to fight us. The aliens learned something important from this war. They learned that humans don't just fight back when attacked. We make sure the attackers never threaten anyone again. The galaxy had indeed learned this lesson. In the months following humanity's victory, military buildup ceased, aggressive species reconsidered their expansion plans, and a new era of cooperation emerged. Not because aliens had become peaceful, but because they had seen what happened to species that chose conflict over coexistence. General Hayes remained in his command center, monitoring the vast network of sensors, agents, and automated systems that protected human space. The war was over, but vigilance was eternal. Humanity had risen from apparent defeat to become the galaxy's guardian, and they would never again allow themselves or their allies to face extinction. The phoenix had not just risen from the ashes. It had become the fire that protected all those who sought to live in peace. The galaxy was safer because humanity had refused to accept defeat, and it would remain safe as long as humans remembered the price of freedom.